Hey everyone, how you doing? Hope everyone's doing great. Welcome back to art class. So this week we are going to take everything we've learned so far, all those techniques about perspective, and kind of add them all together for one kind of big perspective project. We're still going to work just a little more with perspective the next week, maybe into the next week after that, because there's like one more sort of challenging type of perspective to learn about, but we'll worry about that when we get there. So for now, we're going to use all the stuff that we've already learned, everything about drawing 3D forms, drawing in one-point perspective, maybe even a little bit of shading, and we're going to take all that, add it together, and make your own place. So when I say make your own place, you're going to create a world. You're going to create, we could kind of think of this as a landscape or even like a cityscape. It's definitely going to be a big wide view of this place that you're making, and you're going to use some of the techniques that we've already talked about to create that, to create your own world. These can be as simple as you want. These can be as detailed as you want. Before we actually look at how we need to go about doing this, let's kind of remind ourselves, kind of go over, review some of the things we already learned and know about perspective. We're going to do that by looking at a few examples that I've made that are kind of some options of different ways you can do this project. And after that, we'll look at how we're actually going to put it all together to make it. All right, so let's review some of those things and look at a few examples real quick. All right, guys, so real quick, let's talk about kind of some of the things we learned last time, as well as what you're going to need to do for the project this week. So here we've got an example of one-point perspective. This is that classic example we keep looking at that's a road going off into the distance. And this works really well, like we said, because the road is going to be the same width all the way down the road. It looks wider where it's at the bottom of our page because that's closer to us. It looks skinnier near the middle of our page because that's where it's getting further away from us. And that's how that whole one-point perspective, almost optical illusion works. So we're all going to need to start kind of a similar way with some of the basics. And we'll talk a little bit more about this when I'm showing you how to set up your page. But we all are going to need to start with a horizon and a vanishing point. Now you'll notice this vanishing point's a little different from the ones we looked at last week because it is not in the very center of our page. That's fine. It still works the same. Your vanishing point can be wherever you want. Your horizon point, your horizon line can be wherever you want. It doesn't have to be right near the middle. It can be closer to the top. All those things are up to you while you're creating this place, this world that you're making. So once you have your horizon and your vanishing point, I want you to draw a road. Now, you don't always need a road when you're drawing in one-point perspective, but when we're learning, that's what we want to do because, like we said, it's a really good example of how one-point perspective works. So the first steps for everybody, no matter what kind of place you end up making, are going to be your horizon, your vanishing point, and your road. Your road doesn't have to look just like mine, but it will need to be those two diagonal lines that end at our vanishing point. Now, let's talk about more diagonal lines. If you look at everything on this page, well, everything that's going away from us, like our telephone poles and those cacti over on the side, they're getting smaller as they're going away from us. And the way that we do that in perspective so that it looks correct is we use a bunch of diagonal lines. For anything that's going to be going away from you in the world that you're creating, you want to use diagonal lines to know how big to make them. We could draw a big cactus and a small cactus, but it might not be, exactly correct with the rest of our perspective. So if you do diagonal lines, use those to tell you how tall, how big to make things, then it's going to be the right perspective with everything else in your drawing. So anything that's going away from me, even these little lines in the middle of the road, if you look, I used diagonal lines to do it. Now you can draw those really light with your pencil because more than likely you'll want to erase them when you're done, but you're going to want to draw them to use them. Now, this is a pretty simple one that we've been looking at. It's got just a couple of things that show us that perspective. It's got my telephone poles. It's got the cacti. Way off in the distance, we see some mountains, things like that, but there's not a whole lot going on. Now, you can get as complicated with this as you want. So here we've got kind of a city near maybe like a park. There's, a lot more going on in this one than in the previous example, but it all still works the same exact way. If things are going away from us, we're going to use diagonal lines. So if you look at this drawing and you look at the windows and the doors and the tops of our buildings, anything going away from us is going to use a diagonal line that points at the vanishing point. Once you figure that trick out, you can make these as complicated as you want and they'll look great, I promise. One last thing to talk about. Now, if we look at this maybe looks complicated, but I promise you it's not. We've already practiced those basic simple forms, those cubes and pyramids and triangles and stuff like that. And if you look at this house, well, it's made up of some cubes and some triangles. And the only difference between this and the ones that you've already been working on is that these are just connected. These are just right up next to each other, and all the details are what make it look like a house instead of some cubes and some triangles. Same way with this one, though. If you pay attention to the top of the roofs, those diagonal lines are pointing all the way down to our vanishing point. All right, so that was kind of review. That was kind of the basics of how you need to go about doing this. Those were some examples. Those had different levels of detail. The one with like the desert road was real simple. The one with the city was more complicated. Not more complicated because it was really that much more challenging, because this perspective stuff all works the same way. Just more complicated because there were more details to think about while you were drawing things in perspective. All right, so that's kind of it for the first part. Today's video is going to be real short because I want you guys to have plenty of time. Plus, we're not really learning like brand new things. This is all stuff that you've spent a couple weeks working with already. So I'm going to show you just maybe a few more things with some paper that will help you kind of get started, and then you've got all the time you need to work on these and make the best, awesomest, coolest places that you can. All right, let's work on getting started. All right, guys. So for today, for your project, you're gonna need, of course, a piece of paper. You're gonna need a pencil. You're gonna need an eraser. Probably, if you don't have one, not the end of the world, but it will be really helpful if you do have one, and something to draw straight lines. Remember, we said it does not have to be a ruler, just something to help you make straight lines. Now, we're all gonna start the same. We're all gonna start with a horizon. And remember, we said it could be right in the middle, it could be up near the top, it could be down low a little bit. It all kind of depends on where you want it. I'm just gonna put mine here in the middle. And a vanishing point. Your vanishing point, again, does not need to be in the middle of your paper. It can be, it's fine, and it's probably easiest if it is, but it doesn't have to be. You just need to make a little dot because you need to know where it is. So, first step, horizon. Next step, vanishing point. Now we're gonna draw that road. And by showing that road, all we have to do is draw some diagonal lines that start at the vanishing point and go off of our page. Like that. So here's my road, there's my horizon, there's my vanishing point. Now, some of the examples we saw, the horizon was not a perfectly straight line. It was when I started, and then I erased it, and I might have added some bumps in there instead. But I promise this is how all those examples started. It was just like this. So let's look at a couple different options real quick. If I want to put some trees, if I want to put, you know, like our cactus, something natural, we're still using this to show about perspective. And you know, we know in the real world not every tree is going to be the same exact height and things like that, but for what we're doing today, they kind of are. Now that doesn't mean they're going to be the same size. They're going to get smaller as they go away, but in our drawing, that means that if they get small at the same rate, that they were kind of the same height. So I'm going to start off with a tree. Doesn't matter what kind of tree, doesn't matter where it goes. I just need a starting point. Now I know that this is going to be my tallest tree. So I could take my ruler, and I'm going to draw lightly, although I'll draw dark enough for you guys to see. Diagonal line from the vanishing point to the top of that tree, and a diagonal line from the vanishing point to the bottom of that tree. So now I know that if I want this perspective to look right, then my next tree can't go above that line or below that line. Next one can't go above or below. And I can keep going as far as I want, but remember, the reason the vanishing point is called the vanishing point is because stuff will eventually get, you know, so small that there's no way you could see it anymore. So that's what we meant in those examples when we said everything that's going away from me, I'm going to use diagonal lines to show those. Now, if I was drawing this to, you know, make a piece of artwork that I was going to hang on the wall, I would not have made this line that dark because I'd want to erase it when I was done, but I would still put a line there to use. All right, so let's talk about a structure, a house, a building. You do not have to do these. You can make these as simple or detailed as you want. You have to have your horizon, your vantage point, your road, and we do want something to show us that, you know, that perspective. So even if it's just trees on both sides of the road, that's fine, or cactus if it's out in the desert, or like our telephone poles, just something. But you can make these as complicated as you want. So let me talk about a building. Now those buildings, they're basically just big giant cubes. So I'm going to start off with a rectangle. And since this is going to be the side that's facing me, it's just a normal rectangle. I don't need any, sorry, this is why we use an eraser. So if we make mistakes, we can fix it. So it's just a normal rectangle. Now since it's not like a clear building, I can go ahead and erase the horizon behind it so it looks like it overlaps. So now the side facing me, just a normal rectangle. The side going away from me, that's where the diagonal lines start. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to put my pencil right here on my vanishing point and use that to kind of stop this end of my ruler. And I can use that pencil to kind of rotate my ruler wherever I need it. And I'm going to wait till it gets just to the corner of that building, and I'm going to draw a line. And I'm going to do the same thing up top. And I want those lines to be about the same length. Once I get to where I want it to end, I'll just do a nice vertical line like that. And I can erase what I don't need. And there's my building. So that would work the same for windows. I would draw the side. I would draw my top and bottom, however far I needed them. And I would draw the other side. So now one of the important things that makes this whole optical illusion work is that any diagonal line is pointing towards the vanishing point. Now that means that they won't all be the same angle. This diagonal line is going straight up towards that vanishing point because it starts way down below my vanishing point. This one right here, it's almost on my horizon. So it's still pointing a little bit up towards the vanishing point, but it's like almost straight. So the higher something is away from your horizon and the lower something is away from your horizon, the more extreme those angles will be. All right, so I think with this, with the examples from the video, which you are more than welcome to go back, look at again and pause. And I'm going to put some more examples of some similar projects down beneath the lesson on the website. I think with all that, I think you definitely have a good starting point. Take as many ideas from these examples as you want, borrow as many as you want, but always, it doesn't have to be anything like mine. It can be 100% your own creation, and that's what I would love, is to see something completely out of your brain, because that's how we get better at being creative, is stretching that brain muscle. All right, my friends, so we're all going to end up with something showing perspective that has a road. All of the other details, though, are 100% completely up to you. Can't wait to see what everybody makes. That's it. That's all we got. Told you it was going to be pretty quick this week. So work hard, take as much time as you need. Whenever you're done, go ahead and send me the video of it on Flipgrid so I can see them. You don't ever have to feel like you need to finish it the day that you're doing your art lesson, the day of the week that you're doing your art lesson. That Flipgrid link stays there forever. So, if it takes you a whole week to work on this, that's awesome. Because, remember, if we were in our normal art class, we would only have like 45 minutes and we'd probably work on some projects for a couple of weeks before they were all the way done. So take your time. Can't wait to see your stuff. See you guys later. Bye.